Hey, Stacy. Pretty good. Can you hear me okay? Mr. Knight Fluffy, how are you? Oh, man. You didn't watch Switch to Linux and their discussion about Solus and how bad it was? Okay, good. You may have noticed that I'm on Windows right now. So, yeah, about that Windows stuff. Um, I don't really like Windows, but I am shooting from a hotel room, and I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I decided to go live. I figured why not. And it just so happens that Windows pretty much does the best with hardware support. So I've got my OBS screen up here, and over in settings, I can get hardware support for OBS in Windows. I know I can do it in Linux, but as far as I know, I have to compile a special version of FFmpeg, and then I also have to compile OBS, and I don't really want to have to go through that. You know, my home computer is the Ryzen 1700, and it works great, so I don't have to worry about um, compiling all that software. It just seems to work really well. Aha. So maybe I should try Solus. It supports your PCIe drivers, huh? Yeah. And over here, of course, I've got my little MacBook 2015, and great system for what it is. You know, the cool thing about this system is it has 512 gigabytes of storage. So I've got a Windows partition and a Mac partition, and I'm considering dumping it at the Windows partition and putting Linux on there. I figure why not? Let's see if this is working right. Okay, that's me. That's the desktop. Half past midnight. Where are you, Mr. Night Fluffy? Half past midnight. So that's +5. England? I'm thinking. Oh, your iMac died, Stacy? Ah, so it was a good guess. United Kingdom. I've been there. I flew through. So I'll tell my England story. It's not really techy, but it was a connecting flight that I was taking. So they stopped off at Heathrow Airport, and very interesting. My layover, see if this works right. My layover was going to be 16 hours, a 16-hour layover. I said, screw this, man. I am not staying in the hotel. So I went down to the lower level, and I went to the information kiosk, and I said, is there someplace I can get a hotel or something? And they said, sure, absolutely. What are you interested in? I said, you know, something relatively inexpensive. So he said, well, I know a really good hotel. It's got a restaurant attached. It's like 19th century or 18th century. And I'm like, I'm interested. Let's do it. And he said, did you need a ride there? I said, yeah. He said, okay, well, we can get you a lorry for £2. And I'm like, a lorry? What is a lorry? And I'm thinking, okay, it must be a truck. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, what am I going to ride in the back of the truck or something? Well, anyway, it ended up being just like a minivan. But then the guy says in the information kiosk, he says, oh, by the way, we're having riots in London right now. I'm not so sure you want to go. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, riots? Has anybody died yet? And he said, well, no, of course not. And I said, no problem. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I think I can handle riots. So I went into London. I can't remember what part of it now, but I got this very quaint little room, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I went to the restaurant and I got some delicious food and had a pint, and I realized I didn't have a toothbrush, so I had to get some local change, and there was a machine there, so I got a toothbrush out of there, and I saved some of the coins from England, and I had the greatest night. It was relaxing. I got to talk to people in the bar slash restaurant and just really enjoyed myself. And then the lorry came around again and picked me up, all for £2, which, I mean, that is really a good deal. So I got back to the airport to get my connecting flight to head home, and there was this family that I'd been traveling with, and I came back to the hotel, or excuse me, to the airport, and they're all sleeping in the airport. And I said, "Oh my God, did you guys actually stay here all night?" He says, "Well, yeah, what did you do?" I said, "I went and got a hotel room." It was wonderful. It was $91, man, US. I mean, that's a really good deal. And it was a very nice little room. It wasn't a modern hotel, it was an older hotel. I had a great time. I was really glad I did it. And it was well worth the $100 or so that I spent, including the hotel room and the truck back and forth truck, the lorry, or AKA the minivan. So it was really nice. Lincoln, huh? Aha, Solus has UEFI support. Yeah, the internet does connect us all, you're right. I was going to do a video talking about this topic, about smartphones, and see what your take on it was. So, you know what I have? I've got the little smartphone SE, and for what it's worth, it works really well for me. I like it. But this article came out that said that, essentially we've reached peak smartphone, basically. And if you look at this chart down here, you can see this growth curve back in 2009. And I'm assuming this is in millions. I can't really be sure, but we've got this curve here that basically we've seen a growth in the US of just 1.6% in smartphones. And most of the time, at least what I'm doing anyway, is holding off on switching to a new smartphone because it's so effective. I mean, the phone I have right now, this iPhone SE, I just traded in my Galaxy Note 4. Well, I didn't trade it in, I still have it, but I switched to the iPhone SE. It was about October or November last year, and I had been using that Note 4 for years, and way more than the 2-year cycle that most people will switch their phones out with. But they're saying now that smartphone users are not switching their phones out so quickly, and there actually was a impact on Apple, and their sales actually dropped. Get a coffee, Mr. Night Fluffy. I'm with you, buddy, right here. And so now Samsung has made all these OLED screens that are specifically designed for the iPhone X, but iPhone sales have fallen off. So they're thinking that basically with the iPhone, there won't be any use for these screens. And I guess Samsung is trying to find another buyer for these screens, which is interesting. Yet, despite all that, Apple has actually made a record profit. So, Stacy, you're thinking of switching to Android? I want to say it started with the iPhone 7. Yeah, it doesn't have the jack. I got lucky. The SE still has the jack in here, and I didn't think it was a big deal, but the thing is, I'm on a lavalier mic right now, plugged into my laptop. I've got the little, I guess you call them earpods when they're Apple. And these earpods not only sound great, but the microphone on them is awesome. So I would be using it in my laptop right now, but it won't work in my laptop. the microphone part will work in my MacBooks and my iPhones and my cell phone if it's the Galaxy Note 4, but for some reason it won't work in a PC. I haven't figured that out yet. I'm thinking that the pinout here, so they got 4 different sections. I say pinout, but I'm really meaning the wiring on the headphone jack is different than what would standard work in a combo jack in a PC. That's my thinking anyway. I've heard good things about the LG Stylo 3. I came this close to buying one to replacing my Galaxy Note 4. I don't know what possessed me to get an iPhone. I think for me, I like to test out the technology and at least have some idea of what I'm talking about. Case in point, I went to Puerto Rico with a good friend of mine, and we were driving through these mountains, and we were trying to use maps to navigate. So he's driving, and he hands me his phone, and he says, "Here, take the phone. You figure out the map, and I'll do the driving. So you do the navigating, I'll do the driving." I said, "Okay, sounds good." So I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I thought the round button was a back button. I didn't know how to go back or do anything in it. So I kept screwing everything up, and he was laughing and making fun of me, and we had to keep pulling over because I never used an iPhone. I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. So long story short, I don't like to be in a position where I don't really understand technology. So I'm thinking, I've never had an iPhone, and they've been out 10 years or more. I think it's time that I get one and see what all the talk is about. Now, there are definitely pros to the iPhone, and there's cons, of course, just like there is with Android. One thing I like about the iPhone is it gets frequent and regular updates, and having been an Android user with an unlocked AT&T smartphone and stuck with Android 5.01, the only way I could have updated it is sideload it because it wasn't getting any OTA updates, over-the-air updates, because I actually joined a different cell phone company, a different provider. So my phone was an unlocked AT&T phone, and it wasn't getting any updates, and I would have to sideload the latest Android on it. Well, I shouldn't say the latest. The latest image that they had for it, I believe, was Android 6. So it was way behind. Yeah, I agree with screen protectors and cases, Martin. That's definitely a plus. On my little SE here, I did exactly that. Okay, I keep forgetting what order I put these in. There we go. Anyway, so I've got a little plastic case, and it's got the rubber bumper on the side, and then they put a tempered glass cover on the front for me on this phone, on my SE. I just don't feel comfortable without having some kind of case on it and protection. But anyway, getting back to the story that I was talking about, it really looks like things are really changing for smartphone users. I think that we are more now thinking about long-term or longer-term solutions. The author of the previous article at the Washington Post that I was talking about was saying that really you should now start looking at smartphones kind of like a car, where you buy it, you may make payments on it, whatever the case, but when you're talking about $1,000 or more, you're probably going to be using that smartphone for about 2 to 3 years, and you're not likely to be changing often. And I was thinking about it, and I mean, do I really care that we get a bigger bezel? I really don't. I think that what I have here is perfectly fine. I don't care if it has the big bezel up here. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm not sure why that's such a thing, but it is. So I don't care about that. Yes, you do get a little bit more screen, but now they're building the phones longer, so they're really pushing the 16:9 ratio. We've been 16:10 in the United States for maybe 3 years. We were 4:3 before that with the old tube televisions. So now they're pushing, of course, going to 16:9, and that would be a significant change for us. And I don't know what to think about that. You can get a better selfie camera if you get an iPhone 10 or one of the flagship Android phones. I don't care about a selfie camera. To me, it just isn't important. It's not a thing for me. They're thinner. And again, I just don't care. I love this phone. I don't feel like it's going to bend on me, which it doesn't. It has a little bit of give, but not really hardly any. You know, the iPhone 6 Plus, I don't know if anybody remembers that debacle with the phone actually bending, and I don't want a phone that can bend. And they're reducing the ports, and they Apple thinks of it as a better experience. I'm not sure how that can be. I know that you can get a USB-C connector on the newer iPhone to a standard 3.5 millimeter jack. So it's not like the end of the world, but you do, unfortunately, have to come up with a converter or a dongle in order to be able to do that, where I can just plug in any old pair of headphones. Sometimes getting rid of the old stuff, like the headphone jack, isn't all that, my thinking anyway. Yeah, check out Linus Tech Tips and see what you think. I was interested in a Samsung Galaxy S8. What stopped me from going with that really was the beveled screen, the edges. It just seems to me that they break much easier. I've had several students complain about those. And, when I'm walking around the classroom helping students, I note how many of them have broken screens. And I'm not just talking the Galaxy S8 either. I mean, a lot of people have broken screens, but it seems like, and this is purely subjective, so I don't want to ruin anybody's opinion on the S8, but it seems to me like there were more broken screens, and it all began with the edge. I remember that, and students would have them in cases too. One guy said he had his phone, he was sitting in a chair, and it was in his hand, and it slid down his leg in the case and hit the ground, which was carpeted, that very thin carpeting, so not really that thick, and it cracked his screen. So I'm not saying that the Galaxy S8 is going to be like that, though. Now, I do know somebody who has a Galaxy S8. My sister-in-law got one, and she got the screen protector on it and a case, and it cracked, and she said it wasn't even dropped. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe a defect, but she bought the insurance for it, so she gets a brand new phone, and that's that. She doesn't have to worry about it. All right, well, anyway, I decided to download Linux Mint Debian edition, LMDE 2. And let's see, it's finally done. So we don't have the fastest connection here. I was thinking of loading it in a virtual machine. Just make sure I'm on the right screen. Yes, I am. Might as well shrink myself a little bit. I do have comments up on my other computer, so if you guys have comments, let me know. I just have to find my comments. There we go. Yeah, that's the other thing. Why don't they include the adapter. If you're not going to have the headphone jack anymore, throw the adapter in the box at least. I thought that like the 7 and the 7 Plus did have the adapter. I could be wrong. So I don't, one of my things about Linux Mint that bothered me is the fact that it's basically a distribution that's based on a distribution that's based on a distribution. And I always get nervous putting my faith in something that really is reliant on these two other distros. Now, I think Debian's here to stay. It's going to be around. Ubuntu, I hope it's here to stay, and I hope it continues to be developed. I know Canonical is doing better right now with their server products and their cloud services. So if that becomes their bread and butter, which it sounds like it already has, they may, discontinue development of Ubuntu or reduce it greatly. I think they're trying to find a way to make some money off of it, so they're going to start collecting data. And the telemetry sounds generic that they're going to collect. So I'm hoping it's not going to become a debacle like Windows or some of the other Linux distros that are trying to make a fast buck off of data collection. But it seems to be par for the course these days. Windows 10 is a nightmare. I'm sure Chrome collects information, the browser, and we know Firefox, the browser, does. And there's a few Linux distros out there that are collecting data. And even Fedora asks if you want to send anonymous statistical data to help improve Fedora. So I guess it's how you feel about it. But the problem is, of course, it'll be there in Ubuntu, and I'm not sure if Linux Mint is going to fix that issue. If they're going to take out the telemetry, if they're just going to leave it alone and call it good. It's hard to say. The one thing I did notice about, I'm going to go back one here. They say LMDE is less mainstream than Linux Mint. It has a much smaller user base, understandable. It's not compatible with PPAs. Now, I'm not even sure what they're talking about there. And it lacks a few features. That makes it a bit harder to use, but they don't say what the features are they're talking about. How you doing, Ritual? I don't like Firefox Quantum on phones, Martin. I thought it kind of stunk. Okay, with that being said, I do have it on my iPhone. Actually, I'm not sure if it's Quantum or not. Let me see if I can find out which version it is. Why do they always got to make things so difficult? Probably not in settings, would you say? No, I don't think it's in settings. Anybody know where to find Firefox version information? Well, Ritual, I ain't gonna lie, I'm really, really, really tired. I don't know what it is. My wife and her coworker come back at about 7:30 in the morning. This time they wanted to watch a movie, so we watched a movie, and after the movie, they end up staying up and talking for like 2 hours, so it gets to be about midnight noon, and I don't really fall asleep easily, so I fell asleep at about 1, and they were up at about 3:45 in the afternoon. So I got about 2 or 3 hours of sleep. I think what I'm going to do after this live stream, probably crash, and I've got some editing work to do. I got a couple of different videos in the hopper that I want to do, but I'm not really I don't like the hotel living. I'm not gonna lie. I'll check settings. Let me see. I can go into settings right from the browser. Maybe in help. Nope. Oh, I agree with you, Martin. I love Kdenlive. So I have send usage data turned off. I don't know if you guys can see that. Might be blurry. And I'm not even on the right screen, so I'd say no, you can't see it. I turned usage data off. So, oh, duh. Well, it says version 10.6. That really doesn't help me at all. Because 57 and higher on PC is Quantum. I use Sync, by the way, with all of my Firefox browsers. I don't know if anybody else is using it, but I love it. All my passwords and everything sync so I can have them remembered, and I can protect it with one password via Firefox. To me, it works really well. Android setting apps. I'm on iPhone though, Ritual. Yeah, it's funny because even here at the hotel, so I'll shoot my stuff sometimes in Windows like I am now. You know, I'm doing live, so I don't have to worry about it so much, but I'll shoot it and then I'll switch over to Linux and I will go ahead and do all my editing in Kdenlive. That is the best editor. I very rarely, I would say 0.5%, 0.1% of the time, I will use iMovie. I experimented a little bit with Final Cut Pro. The only downside is the learning curve. Adobe Premiere, I experimented with in Windows. I did the trial, and it was actually way easier for me to adapt and begin to understand because Kdenlive is actually modeled very similarly to Premiere or to Kden. Well, they are the same, basically, is what I'm saying. It's my phone talking again. Always interrupts me. It thinks I'm waking it up. I bet it's S voice. But anyway, Premiere and Kdenlive are very similar, so it was an easy thing for me to do. Yeah, I do like Sync. I'm hoping that my information isn't being shared in Sync, but I don't know. What do you do? Okay, let's get rid of that. So anyway, I did download LMDE and I thought I would take a look at it. Now, my fear is when I start a virtual machine, I may run into some trouble with my live stream, so I'm a little bit worried about that. I don't think I want to download a new version. And I'm not sure why. That's really weird. Let me exit for a minute. It's like VirtualBox is going full screen. Oh well. I know what I could do. Linux Mint Debian. Well, I guess Debian's pretty close. Are you guys able to see this on the screen? Because for whatever reason, it's full screen. I'll have to figure that out in a minute. I don't know when we're going to see a patch for Meltdown Inspector. And so you got a 4th gen Xeon. Yeah, I'm afraid of the patch too. I don't know what to expect. I've gotten pretty good performance out of this Yoga. I'm thinking I'm safe to do 4 gigabytes of memory. And sure, let's create a virtual disk. I can't believe they only want to give me 8 gigabytes though. I think we'll go a little higher than that. Even though, you know, it's not like it's necessarily going to grow that big. Okay, so I'm going to power it on. That's weird. I've never had a problem powering on a virtual machine. Let's see if any of the other ones have problems. Yep. So something's going on with my VirtualBox, which is depressing because there is a newer version, however. Let's see. There's more than one way to skin a cat. VM Workstation. I just want to have a look at it. New VM. No, Rachel, they actually did roll them out and then they took them back because, which is funny if you think about it, they literally took them back because the patches were so much of a problem. LMDE. Really can't tell which operating system this is? Well, I will tell you if you give me the chance. Ubuntu's close, but really it's Debian. But I have no idea which. I guess I should go with the newest, huh? Yes, the same thing that happened with Linux. And we're going to change this to Linux Mint Debian. I'm going to put that up to 80 as a just in caser. We'll let it split it into multiple files. I'm going to do a customized hardware. I definitely got the memory here to boost it up. That's why I like having 16 gigabytes in this Yoga 910. It really makes a difference. Processors 1, yeah, I like that. I think that should work. I'll be curious if this actually works. I haven't done an update to VM Workstation in some time. So if there are problems, I would probably blame it on VMware. No, that's okay. I got yet another trick. What is it called? I know it's in here. Should have player, which is free. No, it's got to be on here. Are you kidding me? I haven't been in my Windows 10 login on this system in a long time. I really don't bother too much. Yeah, that's what I want, player. This is the free one. New VM. Same drill. Yes, I do have Windows 10 Education because I got it free through work. Got my Ubuntu's. There we are. Linux, Debian 8X, and Linux Mint Debian. Oops. I don't like Cortana. You can see Cortana is not showing up here. I've done my best to turn it off. Already exists. You're actually not going to let me. You suck. I'll be shocked if this works, you guys. I haven't updated this one in a while either. But we'll try. Again, we got to update the RAM. So we really need 4 gigs. I'm only going to give it 1 core because the system's kind of busy. And finish. Let's see if it'll boot up. Should boot up. That's okay. It's one thing I don't like about Player is it doesn't have a zoom feature. So it's tiny. To return to your computer, use Control-Alt. Okay. Need more cores? Yeah, I really do. Okay, so speaking of cores, I'm debating on whether or not I should get the Yoga 920 because it does have 4 cores. If I do decide to get it, I would sell this Yoga 910, which has worked really well, all things considered, but I was kind of hoping with the 4 cores I could just run in Linux all the time. Now, really, the only reason I end up in Windows is for virtualization on this particular system. Running in software rendering mode. I tell you, this is going to drive me nuts with it being so small. I think what I'm going to do shut down. Let's see if there's a newer version of VirtualBox. Because I don't know what the deal is with it not running. .26. i7 6850K. Yeah, 40 PCIe lanes. It is kind of expensive. You know, I took the short route and I bought the Dell 5675 so-called gamers PC, and I thought, what the heck, what do I got to lose? It's got 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, the Ryzen 1700, a RX 580 AMD card, which I'm not a gamer, as you guys know, so I wasn't too worried about that. And it works great. I mean, for editing purposes and everything that I do with it, I do have a dual boot set up, so it's really nice. Donovan McDab. Well, I mean, I do own a Mac. I own a couple. I got the MacBook Pro 2017. The refurbished MacBook 2015, which I have here with me today. I got the MacBook Pro 2008, which I actually like a lot because it's a 15.6-inch screen. It's really big, and it's actually, for its age, a very sharp, nice screen. I actually like it quite a bit. Excuse me. I've got my wife's iMac 2008, which still works great. I put 6 gigs of RAM in it, or was it 8? I can't remember now. So I boosted that. Oh, and my wife has the MacBook Air, which I bought used. 2014 i7 edition with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabyte hard drive, SSD rather. So, I mean, you can find some good computers, Macs, if you're interested in that kind of thing. I'm hoping I don't blow up my Windows 10. If this thing crashes, you know why. Oh dear. Okay, so we might disconnect for a few seconds. I do have the chat up on my other computer. So just warning you, I don't know what to expect. I've never been doing a live chat and had my network interface disconnect. I think it would be brief, but here we go. Okay. So Donovan, I did buy the MacBook Air for my wife back in the day for $600, but I know you can get them for even less now. So a lot of people don't like the MacBook Air because of the resolution of the screen, but I always tell them, see it for yourself before you make a decision. Because for one thing, that system is still very robust. And when you look at the screen yourself, when you're looking straight on at it, it looks great. And it's hard for people to see it at an extreme angle, which I think is really cool. Because you don't want everybody to be able to read your stuff anyway. It wouldn't be the greatest for... Oh, you do? Yeah, the MacBook Air are good. They're good systems. I really like this Yoga 910. That's why I'm seriously considering the 920. I got a decent tax return, and I got a few pennies from Google. They actually threw a few bucks my way. So I'm thinking i5. Is that what you've got, Donovan? Yeah. iMac i5 2400S on eBay for $350. No kidding. Okay, let's see if VirtualBox will run now. It's still doing that weirdo full screen thing. Oops, no, we don't want that one. It seems to be working now. Guess I'll have to go look for it. No biggie. And we want not the LXQT, although that one was fun. We want LMDE. I'm not really looking for... Now I should be able to go to View, Scale Factor, at least 150. Maybe a hair more. Scale Factor 175. Anyway, I'm not really in looking for a new Linux distribution, but I've heard so much about Linux Mint and its really great simplicity, and it's been probably 5 years now since I explored Linux Mint. And there's why I like VirtualBox so much. You can make the screen, you can scale it. Incidentally, I'm running in 1080p mode on my screen here. Normally I'd be running in 4K, but even that was a problem for it. So let's do an install. I always like to try to install a distro in VirtualBox first to see what happens. I'm hoping I'm still broadcasting. Let's find out. Ugh. Where are you? Yeah, it says I'm still live. I figured somebody would have said something by now if it wasn't. Everybody still there? Okay, so we are running in software rendering mode. That's not a problem. And I'm going to choose English, I hope. Yep, okay, good. Go away, message. I can see I've got the scaling a wee bit too high, so I'm going to take this down, make sure everything fits. It's funny because you can see that here's problem number one. It's actually running in, it looks like maybe 800 by 600, and it's scaled to the point where you cannot see the entire image of this screen here, and it won't let me resize it. So I usually go with enter and hope that works. Nope. What if I grab it here? Nope. You know, it's like this thing should know how to scale correctly. We could turn on panel edit mode. Panel settings. Let's intelligently hide panel. Let's see if it hides itself now. Nope. These are the kind of problems where I just kind of say, all right, let's auto hide panel. And we'll go back. And we'll close. And it's still not auto hiding panel. I guess we could try changing the screen res. Really? So you, Ritual, you think some of this stuff is bloat? And no, we don't want that. Is it already dead? Yeah, I'm going to quit the installer for right now. I can't really get anything to come up on the menu. Because I'd like to move the panel. No, I don't want to do that. Maybe I was doing the wrong thing. Let's see if I can set where I really don't want Windows. There's got to be a way to change screen resolution, I would think. Here we go. Display. Yeah, VGA unknown. Oh, it was scaling. So it looks like it was scaling with the size I was dragging, which is impressive, actually. Okay, maybe then. Now yeah, there we go. That's one of the things about Linux that bothers me. It doesn't take into account different resolutions. It assumes you are running in 1920 by 1080, and that's that. As much as you can manually adjust the scaling in KDE Plasma and do all that stuff, it can be really frustrating if you're using a non-standard resolution, and they really consider 1920 by 1080 to be the resolution you're supposed to be in. But when you look at a really good 4K screen, you don't want to run it in 1080 because you can see the difference. Everything is softer, and it's just disappointing. But that's basically what was going on. The resolution was, it just wasn't conducive with a lower resolution. I wonder if it'll let me do a short one. Oh, I suppose I should do one I'll remember. We'll call this LMDE. Must be lowercase, mister. Don't even try it. Okay, I'll put it in lowercase. No partition table is found on the hard drive. Yes, we want to create one. So far, so good with the installer, except for the little snafu of screen size. So it's going to set aside about 30 gigabytes for slash, which is root, and 75 gigs for home, which is good, on dev SDA. And I'm going really fast, but it's going to use the grub bootloader. Right. And it's off to the races. And let's see how things are going. I think now that this is up and running, oops, I didn't really want to do that. I can close this. Yeah. I wasn't intending to shrink the screen. I hope I didn't blow it up. I'm impressed that it's almost as if this... Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. It's back. Whew. Have you had a problem, Abrahorn, Yosef Gross, if I pronounce your name right, with scaling in Windows? So far, I've had pretty good luck. Let's see how busy our host is. Not too shabby. VirtualBox is eating about 37%. OBS, this is what I love. I can use hardware encoding. Look how little OBS is using of my host system. I'm able to stream live. I've got a 1080p webcam running on the same computer. I'm building a virtual machine, and I still have headroom on the CPU and on memory. And I do love how the latest Windows version gives you a GPU usage. I think that's really cool, and I'm glad they added that. And I'm waiting for the same thing to happen in Linux. I'm a KDE Plasma user primarily, so I'm really hoping it's going to show up in K Monitor, KSysmon. And if I wasn't able to offload OBS onto the GPU, this thing would be a dog. As a matter of fact, if I boot into Linux on this system, on this Yoga 910, I cannot run my 1080p camera. It drops probably 2/3 of the frames. It just can't handle it. So I kind of have to be in Windows to do this kind of stuff. And I never really tested the whole live stream thing, so it was kind of a risk. And it's working. So far, so good. So VirtualBox is consuming 30. Isn't that funny? Look at WaterFox, where'd it go? It was around 4%. Not too bad. I can live with that. It looks like this is going to take a little while, but aside from the screen res snafu, it's actually doing pretty good. You just go by A or Av. Okay, now there I do have, I know what you're talking about, the different resolutions with your monitors. I do too. Ooh. Yeah, I didn't use a 1600 by 900, but I did have an issue. Well, actually, this was with Linux when I plug in a 1080p monitor and I've already got a 4K screen like on this laptop. It tries to, I've got the scaling enhanced to like 2.5 times the size for 4K, and I cannot adjust the scaling on the 1080p monitor unlike I can with Windows. So Windows will properly scale everything on an external monitor, but Linux won't. It just won't do it. I don't know what the deal is. I was going to do this as a video, but you know, it's really interesting when you do things live, you get a better sense for what it really entails. I would probably have sped all this stuff up and spared the user from sitting around and waiting, because a lot of my viewers don't like long videos. And unfortunately, you know, when you're live, that's the way it is. You can't really make any changes or adjustments. But you begin to appreciate, at least to some extent, all the work that goes into it. Not just making the video, but, you know, software in general and hardware in general. It looks like my neighbors are back across the hallway. I actually thought they were shooting a porno last night. It was so loud you could hear it through the door. That's how bad it was. And it went on for about 4 hours, and there was the intense smell of marijuana throughout the hallway. So all these people, I don't know where they are during the day, but they come back, they get their room, they do their usual thing, whatever it is, but it usually entails smoking weed. I don't know what that's all about. Come on. I did give it 1 core, so it's not like it's going to be all that fast. And unfortunately, this is the one thing you can't really change. It says I could have given it up to 4 CPUs, but if I'd done that, it really would have trashed things. I don't know how many people use VirtualBox. I really like it. One reason is the scaling, and I'm running in 1080p right now, but if I was running in 4K, I would have had to have scaled quite a bit more. The other thing is the granularity with which you can set processor affinity. So you can give it more cores. Now I only have 2 physical. You can scale back the execution cap. So if you really are lean on processing, you could say, well, I only want to give it 80% execution, so it won't take that core and max it out, which is really nice. There's some things you can do in display, which I haven't done yet. We can enable 3D acceleration. The weird thing about that is they only give 128 megabytes for video memory, and I'm hoping that's going to change in the future. You know, I've got a 16 gigabyte system here, and I'm wondering if the reason for that is because it uses actual video memory available. Now, of course, on this system, it has the Intel HD 620 built-in graphics, so it's actually shared, at least part of it. I think there is an exclusive chunk, but for the most part, it uses shared memory. Of course, everything's running off the SSD, which makes it really fast, which I absolutely love. Putting in the bootloader. I really would like to know what the features are that LMDE does not have that Linux Mint, the official distro, does have. If this was a really, really, really good distro, I might consider switching from Fedora. I've been using my Raspberry Pi more and more. And for those of you who haven't watched, I have a video on the Raspberry Pi. I have a second video coming out on the Raspberry Pi. Like I talked about in my hotel video just a few days ago, I have one critical video I shot a little bit later, and I thought I put it on my portable drive to bring with me to actually edit tonight, but I didn't, so I'm going to wait till I get back and edit that on my desktop. That is the funniest thing. I move it and I don't mean to resize the screen, but it resizes the screen. I'm not sure when Betsy came out, but they definitely are slower on development, which is understandable, but I wonder if they're going to get to the point where they're going to bypass Ubuntu altogether and build right off of Debian. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shut this virtual machine down. Whoops, not that way. Because I want to see if I can turn on hardware rendering. And let's see, is my VirtualBox still here? Yes. Can't open this item, it's been removed. Okay, Windows, thanks. Before I power up, I'm going to go into settings. I usually do this anyway. Move the memory all the way up, enable 3D. And it won't do 2D acceleration, but it will do 3D. So we'll leave that there. Click OK, start it up. And let's see if that message goes away. Oh, shoot. No, don't do it. I don't want you to boot from that. I love doing this. I'm going to force the unmount. It's a live CD anyway. Ooh, stack trace, kernel panic. It's the end. Not really. It's like you took the CD or the USB, you pulled the USB for the live CD. Okay, now we're on the real boot screen. Loading. Please wait. So if let's go with full screen mode and see what happens. Let's see if it rescales. Maybe not. View, auto resize. Go get them. Could it be because I have a scale factor set? Or is that just how it is with their login screen? I like the little penguin. That's so cute. I was going to see if we could scale it to full desktop size. No. Should be able to. All right, Betsy. We're going to close that. Curious. It's like it doesn't want to. Let's get out of full screen mode. It's like it doesn't want to scale correctly. We'll get rid of that. Let's go ahead and try guest editions. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Yeah, they would be, but technically, I mean, I wonder how much software is Ubuntu specific. Yeah, you could add the repos after if you wanted to, right? I mean, why not? Yeah, if you like Windows and it works for you, why change, you know? This kernel requires an x86-64 CPU, but only detected an i6. Mega Ninja, what that means is the system that you're running on needs to be, you need to go into the BIOS and turn on VT technology, virtual technology. It's an Intel thing. And then there's an equivalent for AMD CPUs. If it's a more budget system, sometimes they don't even have the option to turn on VT technology in the BIOS. Otherwise, you got to stick with a 686, which is 32-bit. Yes, I wish to continue. I guess we might as well go back to scale factor 125 at the least, right? A lot of the time with these VMs, so I'm curious, Ritual, what software from the Ubuntu distros were you using? You know, what did you have to have from their distros that worked best for you? Okay, so our guest box editions installed. I think I'm getting weird. You know, I think this is probably because I enabled that 3D. That's going to come and get me in the end, isn't it? Well, easily dealt with. We'll power off. All right, sudo power off, okay? Let's see if I can remember my password. And it should go night-night. Oh, darn, I missed my chance to pin that. Pin to taskbar. I still don't know why this is running without any of the toolbar at the top. That's so strange. I'm going to go back into settings here. And at least for a little while, I'm going to turn off 3D acceleration. And Entree. Mega Ninja, just to add to that, sometimes it's not called VT technology, it's called something different. So depending on who made the BIOS for your particular system, it could vary in its terminology. Okay, so I'm thinking now I should scale. Okay, so I guess I'm ignorant on this. I don't know what a PPA is really. Oh, some codecs, yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Okay, yes, we are running in software mode. So if I go to full screen, will it scale now for me? It doesn't seem to be, and I don't know why. Better. Now let's see if we get a menu. We do. If I click preferences, will it come up now? I have found that whenever something weird like this happens and you're clicking things and things aren't working, simple scan worked. That's odd. The best thing to do, and I'm kind of a novice here at Debian stuff, so don't laugh at me. Sudo apt get, is it upgrade or update? Okay, I'll try update. Oh, that must have been it. Lots of packages. Whoops, I actually meant to zoom in, sorry. Tons of packages for update. So unofficial repos maintained by outsiders in the community. Lots of times there are things that Ubuntu. Okay, yeah, I do that with Fedora too. I put in all the repositories, and I guess with things like Aurora, it's easier to get all the services and features you like with Fedora in Aurora because it has all of the non-free stuff already enabled from RPM Fusion. So I just did this on my Raspberry. Resynchronize the package and just upgrade to install the newest. I guess I could try dist upgrade. Sudo apt get dist upgrade. How long can it take? It can't be that bad, can it? 218 megabytes. Need to get 548 megabytes of archives. Ouch. But you know what? You can't really experience a proper installation unless you go for the gold and do the updates, because this one, not being a rolling release, obviously is going to be very out of date. my experience too, Ritual, is that there are tons and tons of different packages that are worth having with the non-freeze. I agree. That is a really good question, Ab. I hate to say it, but I don't want to tell you just use Google. Um, Most of what I learned on the job with servers, and I became really good at the underbelly of Linux. And then I decided, okay, I need to know more about Linux. The only way I can do it is just be on Linux. So I switched my work desktop environment to Linux and never looked back again. I did virtualization for Windows, and I did we had Windows servers and things like that. So I would use VNC to log into those, and it worked great. But it's tough because there isn't really one site that helps very much with Linux. The good thing is if you can find some used books, it's not like things change so fast that an older book wouldn't be useful. So you can get a book that's 2 years old, and if your distro is using systemd or whatever, it's still going to be relevant. You know, all of the systemd commands that are there are still relevant today. So you learn a lot depending on what you're trying to learn. The GUI, you know, it changes really fast. So if you're buying a book to learn about the GUI, it's not really going to help you all that much, because within 6 months on Fedora, things are going to change. And sometimes they do changes between releases. And, you know, you're just not going to be able to get a textbook about the GUI, but you can certainly do that for all of the commands and non-graphical stuff. I found, and what you're saying here basically annoys me. You try to learn a package like Kdenlive, and I had some problems with Kdenlive, and there's just no good documentation. I went and looked on the actual Kdenlive support site, and the information was behind by, I would say, 4 years. And even with Fedora, I go to their actual Fedora support, and they'll be talking about, do this for Fedora version 17. And I'm thinking, 17? That's 5 years ago. Everything's different now. Ever since 22, they went to systemd. So it's like, what? And that gets me frustrated. And unfortunately, with the Kdenlive issues, I was forced to learn it myself by trial and error. And there's still things that I have to figure out. It's such a big package with so many different options. You could spend an immense amount of time on it and still not be a pro. I was thinking of doing a live video one of these days. I saw, who was it? A guy I watch all the time, a younger guy. He calls himself the Apple Sheep. What is his name? His name's Drew. I can't remember his channel anyway. He did a video where he edited for like 2 hours. Tutorial.linux, YouTube, cool. I might even look at that, because I've found in my experience, unless I'm doing it, working in a specific function of Linux on a daily basis, I forget. I'll have people send me messages. They'll watch a video. Excuse me. They'll watch one of my videos and they'll say, oh, by the way, I have this question. You know how to do XYZ now. How do I do this? And I'm thinking, well, I made the video and I have done that, 5 or 10 times, and I know how to do it, but I don't really remember how to do it. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to go research that and go through that whole process all over again. And that's going to be really challenging, because I've already forgotten that particular facet of Linux that I learned. There was a book I was using in Linux. I'll have to find it and I'll post a comment on this video in the description about it. Because it helped me with systemd and other elements. I'm actually going to pick it up again and reread it. So I get these big, hardware books and software books on specific software. And my wife makes fun of me because I sit around and read these things. She's like, how can you read that? And it kind of reminds me of the original Star Trek, how Scotty used to read all the technical manuals and everybody would make fun of him. They're like, hey, we're on shore leave. We're going down to this planet. We're going to get drinks and, party and do all this stuff. What are you going to do? I'm going to sit in my room and read these technical manuals I've been wanting to read all this time. And I don't get as much time to read as I used to. But it's funny because I really like reading tech stuff. And I still do a lot of reading, a ton of reading. And most of it's online now, but, I still have a ton of books. And I always say, if you do get a book, do not throw it away. As sure as you throw that tech book away, for some reason you'll need it. You'll get a job or whatever in the industry, and they'll have an old server, and you'll think, I used to have a book on that, but I threw it away. I threw away some DOS manuals I had. Why in the world I did that? And then I'm ending up using DOSBox, installing old DOS games. And I'm thinking, why did I throw away those DOS books? They were awesome. They would have helped me out. I really regretted that. I did. I'm going to go watch those. Okay, I got to go back in your comments. Tutorial Linux. And a lot of time I will watch these even if I'm doing something else, tutorials or other Linux videos. I watch Switch to Linux a lot. Pretty much any of the Linux channels I watch quite a bit. So we're still unpacking stuff. I'm always curious, how will I do that here? Monitor. How heavily in use the system is on my VM. So our single core is topped out. So we definitely could benefit from more cores. Memory, look at that. I'm only using 600 megabytes out of the 4 gigs that was given to it, which is a good thing if you think about it. Most systems these days, though, really, really work well with multi-core. And if they're not going to use, I've got an 8-core processor now. So with threading, it's got 16 cores. It's not like with decoding today, most of the programs are taking advantage of 4 cores. But you can see here, we are suffering because we're only running off of 1 core. But because my system physically only has 2 cores, I couldn't justify handing it 2 cores, even though it's really threads, because the system is at, my actual host is at 70 to 80% utilization. So if I throw another core in, we would have tipped it right over the edge. That's why I'm thinking of that Lenovo 920. It's got the 8550U processor, and this one, the Yoga 910 memory is running at 2133 megahertz. The Yoga 920 is running at 2400 megahertz. Now, unfortunately, the onboard video isn't much better. And I don't know if that would make any difference, really. I mean, when I do Linux stuff, unless you're willing to compile source code, you're really not going to get GPU support. You do get some. I shouldn't say that. Like on my system at home, I can play 3D video games and everything because there is a 3D driver that's in place. It's open source for my AMD RX 580 card. But unlike Windows, where if you've got the video driver, everything uses it, in Linux, that video driver doesn't help you with rendering in Kdenlive. You have to compile the source code to include the rendering using the GPU and FFmpeg as well. At least FFmpeg. I've done a ton of research on it, and I'm getting close to the point where I'm thinking of compiling my own FFmpeg and try to render video using hardware, because it's going to make a big difference. But anyway, I'm thinking just, having the 4 cores. And the other thing is the 8550 processor has HEVC H.265 built in. So that's significant. So it wouldn't be software encoding, basically using the processor to run a software compatible encoder. It would be built-in hardware encoding. This is time consuming. I didn't think it was going to take quite this long to do the updates. I want to look around while I'm waiting. Log out, lock screen, files. Probably going to kill the processor. I always like to change my view on files to list view. I always want to see, I always need it, modified date and usually size are two things that I need to know right away. It's a good thing we're running off an SSD. And it has terminal, it has system settings, software manager, which I haven't looked at on this particular system. Might as well save this in the keyring, I guess. Ugh. Oh well. It's actually running really good for a single core. I'm going to go back into it was saying that the dist upgrade did something in addition with updating packages. I don't know if it's supposedly faster or more complete or whatever it is. Definitely have their own flavor of software manager here. It's actually nice looking. I like that it's rated by how many people have installed it and actually their ratings. That's pretty cool. Audacity, Inkscape, Blender. So these are the featured ones, probably the most popular. If I go back to categories, so there's 68,119 packages, 457 font packages, sound and video, VLC Audacity, Audacious. I like Rhythmbox. I don't know about you guys. So does the check mark mean it's installed? What do you think? They really do. This is actually really well organized. The Fedora, the software manager is just kind of ugly. And I haven't used Cinnamon in a long time. I really like it. So, do we have Kdenlive? I'm wondering. The other criticism I always have of, yes, we do. The other criticism I have of Fedora is when you do a search, oh my God, it can take forever. This is actually very responsive. For one, we're in a virtual machine. Secondly, we're doing a massive amount of updates. We've got its only virtual processor topped out, and it's doing a great job. My experience has been if you install Kdenlive, this has been in Fedora, it doesn't get all the dependencies needed, and I end up having to install KDE anyway, the Plasma desktop. So just for curiosity's sake, I'll start a new terminal. And do man apt get. I did the dist upgrade when I did my Raspberry Pi. Dist upgrade, in addition to performing the function of upgrade, also intelligently handles changing dependencies with new versions of packages. apt-get has a smart conflict resolution system and will attempt to upgrade the most important packages at the expense of less important ones if necessary. Dist upgrade can remove some packages. I probably didn't need to do it, but I don't know if it's more processor intensive or takes longer. I imagine it does. So it's at work installing packages. If it's like Fedora, it does it alphabetically and it's on the M's now. It looks like it. Mint NDM, Mint Mirrors, Mint X. And can we scroll up? Yes. Linux compiler, LibreOffice. Yeah, it looks like it's doing it in order. What else do we have? Education. Graphics, LibreOffice Draw. Oh, it already has GNU built in. I use GNU a lot for my thumbnails and other graphics work. Firefox, Thunderbird, Pigeon, HexChat. It's already got transmission built in. I do, when I can, I BitTorrent all of my distro downloads. It's super duper fast. It's way better in my opinion. Office, you got all the Libres. Let's check out which version. Of course, I think it's all done. Let's do that. Office, LibreOffice Writer. I've heard version 6.0 is definitely a good improvement. I can't tell which one this is. Whoa. Version 4.3? Huh. I was thinking it would be at least on 5. I'm sure it's good enough, and possibly it might change after we do an update. Oh, let's see what else. Admin tools, a lot. Firewall config. If I click it, what happens? Nothing. Seems odd. I must be... Let's try this again. There we go. I couldn't figure why LibreOffice was an administration. Update manager, users and groups. Software sources, so theoretically we could change some of that. Let's launch it and see what we get. Official, additional. I would have to add them in, no big deal. So if I wanted additional repositories, I could add them. If I click plus, does it have any suggestions? We should have Jesse main already, I would think. Just curious to see what it'll do. Jesse main, I would think that would be Ubuntu, am I correct? Dist upgrade was something you did when you wanted to move up a version without having to do a brand new install to get the latest version, like a way of keeping your pre-existing. Okay, it probably is, because that's what it had me do for my Raspberry Pi ritual. Oh, Fedora was the first distro you tried? So which one are you using now, Ritual? Yeah, good point, Mark. 2741. Okay, Jesse is Debian. I see. And you know, I mean, this is the Debian version of Linux Mint, so it might not be as up to date, but I can see why the stability would be there. This in some ways reminds me of CentOS. It is way behind the curve when you go from Fedora. It's years back, and I remember when I bought a Lenovo Yoga 2 laptop, I thought, what Linux distribution do I want to put on here? And I tried CentOS and Ubuntu, and I could not get the Wi-Fi working on any of them because it was too new, the wireless AC card that was built in. So I finally tried the beta of Fedora 23, I believe it was at the time, and it was the only one that would work. And so I was able to get it working, thankfully. Ubuntu mini build, nice. Yes, I love XFCE. I'm pretty sure that's what Raspbian is using. I don't know if you guys have done any Raspberry Pi stuff, but I cannot believe how good that little... I have a Raspberry Pi 2 my son gave me. Beautiful. The thing runs great. I'm able to do any of the basics I need to do, LibreOffice. It views videos just fine after I did updates, so I can do YouTube stuff, any administrative stuff. Of course, I can't edit on it, you know, because it is, after all, a 4-core ARM CPU. I'm starting to lose my voice here, but I have no complaints. That little thing, what I do, I leave it running in my office. I can go in there anytime I want, and I have a desktop instantly. All I have to do is turn on my second monitor. I don't have to wait for any boot up, nothing. And it barely draws any power. I'm thinking it's stable. So it's got to be getting really close now, because it looks like it's setting up the latest boot images. I want to come back over here, do quit, and do a uname-r. I'm kind of curious what kernel we're on. 3.16. That's pretty old. Again, like you guys are saying though with Debian, if it's that stable, I definitely could see using something like this. Just out of curiosity. I'm going to launch Firefox. I want to see what version of Firefox it's on. It probably just got updated, so let's see what the latest update it would have for Firefox. I always forget how to do this. Help. Well, it's got the squared off, so it's going to be squared off tabs. It's going to be newer. Yeah, 58.02. So brand new for Firefox. So the update came through, and oh man, you guys, my mouse froze. That freaked me out. Yeah, Mark, I have to agree. I bought a 1080p monitor for my desktop system, and I don't regret it a bit. It's, what is it, a 24-inch, I think, 25, and it looks fantastic. It's nice and big for me. I can read it easily. I can see, it's not quite as sharp as a 4K, but until Linux comes along in the scaling, I do run 4K here on my laptop, but the only downside to that so far for me is GIMP. I've been able to get KDE Plasma to scale quite well. Speaking of which, I wonder if I can do scaling here. You can see things are just a wee bit smaller. Years back, I did some work in Cinnamon, and it seems like I could. I don't know if it hangs in display, rotation, resolution. No, it's really not what I'm looking for. That's where it would be in Plasma. Workspaces panel, extensions. I wouldn't think it would be in desktop, but let's find out. No. General. User interface scaling. I don't really want double. I'm going to try it anyway. This may crash the VM, but yeah, see, this is the thing. That's my choices. Double would be great for 4K. I'll try auto and see what that does. Auto is basically normal. Go to normal. That's not very many options. Like I can't even do, I wonder if I could do font scaling, anything. don't see anything. I heard Cinnamon was kind of an offshoot of GNOME 2X. And GNOME 3, if you install the appropriate tools, you can scale fonts. At least that's something. This would be just a hair too small for me. Really. Well, I guess here's fonts. Text scaling factor. I mean, that would help some. You do get viewing issues. Let's go back to 1. I guess not too much. And I don't believe it needs to be saved. Okay, so it looks like it rescaled all my screens here. Yuck. Let me close some of this stuff because I'm going to go ahead and do a reboot now because it looks like it's done. Well, let me do a reboot as a regular user. No. In Linux land, well, Fedora, I should say more specifically, you do have the ability to do reboot and power off as standard user. So we have what looks like current kernel, advanced options, some memory testing, a very streamlined grub menu. Yeah, they're finally done. I still say that's pretty good. I mean, we did 0.5 gigabyte of updates on a single core in a virtual machine, and we were playing around with it at the same time. Not sure why it doesn't scale the startup screen. It might on actual hardware. Okay. Okay. How about enter? Uh-oh. I don't know what that was. Did I kill it by doing updates? Let's find out. What is this? VBox client. Well, I'm not going to worry too much. It's possible I need to install a client update or reinstall the clients altogether. This kind of reminds me of Mint when I was back using it years back. So this is all the apps. And I did make the font a little bit larger. Very curious to see if Writer got updated. It doesn't look like it. I mean, there's more than one way to do this. We could just download the package and install it and just go ahead and remove LibreOffice from the repository. The only thing is then it doesn't get regular updates and it's a little more complicated, but it's in reality, it's kind of like doing a Windows install, you know. It's not like you just run an update and you're able to do it in Windows. You actually have to download the newer package, run the updater. It's more complicated in Windows, so firewall config built in. I'm also assuming that this is using systemd. Let's find out. Yes, it is. I don't think it's telling me I need any updates now. I think it's all done, and we had quite a few there. So I guess if I did a sudo apt get upgrade, well, I'll do what you suggested. Update, first of all. Yeah, I wouldn't think there would be any more updates anymore. But I'm not sure. Sudo apt get update. Just curious to see if it's got anything. I just ran that. Yeah, that's what happens when you don't get enough sleep. I'm going to leave it, though. I've learned my lesson. You can corrupt the database. Upgrade. See if there's anything left. No. Okay. I did dist upgrade. I don't know if that had any difference. Should be nothing now. Yeah, so it's as updated as it's going to get. If I wanted the newer Office, I'm going to have to do that myself. What else do we have here? We can change backgrounds. Not much to go with. Oh, that's pretty. They actually do have quite a few nice ones, don't they? Wow, cool. I always like having a nice... See, I did not do that. I think maybe something with the virtual mouse. I highly doubt it's a distro issue. But it keeps resizing itself. Nice. I'm a sucker for beautiful art, to be sure. I'm easily amused with backgrounds. Date, time, desklets. Now that might come in handy, an actual disk usage analyzer. What exactly does it analyze? I'm thinking there's something like this in Fedora, but I really don't have much of a need for it. Wow, actually that's very cool. I don't think this is in Fedora. I'm sure I could get it. Very nice. 3.6 gigs in user already. No surprise there, really. Where is home? Media mount serve / user var lib op boot etc. Is there no home in this version of Linux? Again, I don't know much. There is a home. Am I missing something here? Temp. I mean, it's all under / one way or the other, but it seems strange that it isn't listing home. But that is really neat. Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. I could see where that would be a useful tool. What else we got? We've got backup. Display, document viewer, domain blocker. Domain blocker, huh? That little shield in your sys is saying you have updates. This one right here? Please choose an update policy. Let me review sensitive updates. Always update everything. If a regression breaks something, I'll fix it. Select updates which do not impact important parts of the operating system. Let me review sensitive updates. I really am one of those, I'll update it myself. All this is grayed out. So is it going to do, okay, my system is up to date. I see. So it does basically have you do the updates. It's just using the graphical interface. Oh, nice. I didn't think about that, Mark, having it switched. Well, now I know, Ritual. I didn't even know to go and look at the shield, so I don't know why it came up with this. Grant permissions without asking for password. I'm good with that. So now the shield is gone. Well, it says I'm up to date. Blocked domains, add. You're talking about actual internet domains? I'm assuming so. The only other thing I could imagine being blocked would be Windows. Started with the privileges of the root user without the need to ask for a password due to your system's authentication mechanism setup. Well, I'm good with that. So basically, sudo is set up to allow me to become root, I assume, without the password. And I could change that if I wanted to. Timeshift backups available for Fedora 2, but you had never heard of it. Really? All right, Ritual. Thank you for hanging around. I always appreciate your input. Have a good one. What else do we have? I probably could sit here and go through every single one of these things. I have to admit, this Cinnamon interface is nice and refined, and now that I've made the fonts louder or larger, it's not a problem for me to be able to read it. I could totally live with this. So I want to see something. Apt get install Kdenlive. I want to see if we can get Kdenlive working. Wow, this is going to be a whopper. Well, let's do it anyway. I just want to see if it looks right and it actually launches. I don't have any video in this virtual machine, but I'm going to try it anyway. Thanks, Ritual. I will. I think this will be the last thing I'll do because I'm starting to run out of gas, but Kdenlive for me is kind of like the go-to app. It's so powerful. It is really a full professional editor, and I personally find it the best one. I'm sure given time I could learn, I already forgot the name of the editor in Mac OS, Final Cut Pro. And I use iMovie from time to time. It does have a few features I like in it. And I'm sure I could learn Premiere, and I have used Premiere under Windows, and it was decent. But I don't want to have to pay for something I don't have to pay for. And I do believe that Linux and open source does give you more control over security and privacy. That's mainly why I like it. And I would like to see the whole world shift towards open source, but I think that's a pipe dream. I think the people who know the value of open source and they use it and are willing to work through the problems. And when I say that, I'm not saying that open source has more problems than Windows or Mac OS. The fact is, no matter what operating system you're running, you have to work through little idiosyncrasies and problems and issues. It's the way it is, whether you're paying for it. You know, we don't really pay for Windows. I mean, at this point, you probably do have to pay for Windows, but Mac OS, you pay for it by buying the hardware. And even then, they had issues with Mac OS, even recently. So this looks like it's going to take a minute. Mark, you're thinking this is going to be an older version, the Kdenlive? You know what? You might be right. It wouldn't bother me if it was an older version because I've had good success as long as it's not too old. So it looks like it's grabbing everything it's supposed to. It's actually getting the oxygen theme now, which will be needed for proper display with Kdenlive, I believe. I'm sure our processor's probably tapped out right now. I wonder, well, no, I don't want terminal, I want monitor. Oops. And if I right click it, I can add it to the panel. Cool. And I can add it to favorites. I wonder why it chose there. So this must be the favorites, and it made the menu go up, which I think is really nice. I was kind of hoping that's what it would do. Of course, Kdenlive, you end up having to scroll. So this is actually nice. Definitely a preference. And it put it at the bottom, and I assume I could move it up. Yes, I could. Wow, that is nice. I love it when you can drag something. That's how simple it should be. Cool. This reminds me of GNOME a lot. And the one thing I don't like, well, actually, it is showing me, well, I only have one core. If I had multiple cores, it doesn't give me a combined processor usage, you know. And if you've got 5 cores, you can't really get a good idea of how much of the total processor is being used. You kind of just have to guesstimate. Let's sort by processor here. So Cinnamon's taking up about 23% of the desktop. And we have applet.py running. I wonder if that's the installer. Oh, it's done. I really need to pay attention here, you guys. Okay, so let's find out if it'll just launch. If it does, it's already beat Fedora, which would not launch Kdenlive. Ooh, are you guys seeing that? 0.9.10? Wow. Well, for one thing, I definitely don't do... There we go. Well, it can't be that old. It knows 1080p 60 frames. Typically, what I shoot at is HD 1080p 30 frames. Home FastGadgets looks good to me. Not worried about webcams right now. Don't need those. VLC is already installed, which is good. Well, this looks a lot different than what I'm used to. Not a ton, but yeah, this one is older. If I was booted into Linux right now on my host, I would check and see which version I have, but I'm quite sure about KDE. So the Flatpak version, will it update this version, or am I stuck with both versions at that point? I didn't want KDE. What am I doing? About Kdenlive. Yeah, 0.910. So you said in the Software Center, of course, this is the LMDE, so let's find out Kdenlive. I see. Now it's marked as installed. Does that mean that I'm not seeing the Flatpak installations? That's what I'm thinking anyway. Because it's got them marked as installed. What I think I'm going to do, I'm probably going to stop this video for tonight, but I'm going to install a virtual machine of regular Linux Mint. I want to see what the versions are. I'm sure everything's a little bit different. Ah, yeah, see, I think that I would see different versions. So it's interesting because that leads me to believe that Debian itself wouldn't have the most updated version of this as well. Curious. I mean, it basically looks identical. As long as it actually works, I have no objection. Can I pull this? I should be able to. Nope. What about my render settings? This is where I get worried. Yeah, it doesn't see any of the newer stuff. H.264. It doesn't see H.265 or anything. Otherwise, pretty much all the same stuff. But yeah, this is a way older version. So I think I'm going to end the video here, but what I will do in the future is I think I'll download the regular Linux Mint, and now I'm beginning to understand why Mint was saying that the Debian edition is more for advanced users, because if you want stuff, you're going to have to work a little harder to get updated programs, and there are some programs that are simply missing because it's based off of Debian specifically. So I think what I'll do, instead of getting just Linux Mint, I'm going to install Debian in a virtual machine maybe tomorrow night and do a comparison between Debian and Linux Mint Debian and see if they're doing the same thing as far as packages go. This one said it was pulling from Jesse, so it may be that there's updated packages or an updated Debian version available that has newer packages. Wow, have we really been at it 2 hours and 10 minutes? Dang. Well, I want to thank everybody for hanging out for the last couple hours, and to everybody on here, thank you very much for all the posts that you put up, all the comments, because it really helped me understand a little bit more about what was going on and learning about Linux Mint and Debian to some extent. But I definitely can see where this particular version of Mint is not nearly as refined as the actual Linux Mint based on Ubuntu, which I can understand. But I'm pretty excited. Actually, I do want to get Debian and the real Linux Mint based on Ubuntu and compare all three now. So that would really be fun. I might do that in another video in a couple days. I'll download them and get the VM set up, and then we'll do kind of a comparison and switch back and forth between I probably could run 2 at the same time as I do a live stream. Or I can wait till I get home this weekend because I could do it on my Ryzen 1700. Alright, everybody. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time on Fast Gadgets. Had a good time tonight. Thanks a lot. Till next time, guys. Take care.